Hey everyone, so welcome back to another video. So in this one what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to create a dynamic VR HUD. I'm going to be using VR for this, but if you're doing a first person or third person character, the concept is exactly the same and it should work exactly the same. So before we get started, I want to tell you about this video's sponsor, which is absolutely awesome, and it is KiwiDesign.com. So these guys make VR products and accessories that help everyone out. And what they've done is they've sent me one of their 5-meter long USB-C cables for the upgraded link. And the idea is that it has 5 gigabits per second and it's 16 feet with a 90-degree head on it. So when you're using this, it actually plugs into the Quest or any other headset. And it does it so it's not going to poke right out and it's not going to be in the way. I've been using it for about 2 months now and it's genuinely fantastic. My home router is downstairs, so getting a signal to the Quest to do Airlink is just not possible. And the other thing as well with the Quest, since I use the Vive Focus, this thing just can't connect to my PC using wireless. So this cable has been an absolute lifesaver. I've used it for events and everything in between. So if you're developing something and you're thinking about grabbing a cable, make sure you use the referral link in the description. It means we get a little bit back for the channel. And the idea is everything that we get goes towards an Oculus Quest Pro. And it's going to kind of feed back into that so we can do some videos and sponsor content with that as well. So if you're looking for a cable or to make your workflow a little bit easier, make sure to head over to the description. You'll be able to find yourself a referral link where you can then go to the website and you'll see it says reference GDXR, which is awesome. So you'll see now that at the time of the video going up, they've got a site-wide 10% off. So if you're interested in one of the cables, you can literally go down to link cable. And then I've got the upgraded 5-meter link cable. You can select this. And you can take their referral code, so code AHE10, copy that in and add to cart. And if we remove something, we can then check out. And you can paste that in here and apply it. So that helps put a little bit towards the channel. It also saves you some dollars and some pounds. And if there isn't a code on the website already, you can use GDXR to get 5% off, which is super cool. Thank you to Kiwi for sponsoring this video. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to Unreal and we'll get started. What I've done is I've loaded the Epic Launcher and then I've just opened up the starter content. So I'm currently using 5.0.3. At the time of the recording, 5.2, 5.1 preview is out. But at the minute it's so unstable I can't really use it. So we're just going to use the 5.0.3 and you should be able to follow along as well. So go from there. All I've done is set up a project location and a project name, and I've selected the virtual reality template. So we're going to hit create. Wait for that to load up. I've already connected my headset to Oculus. And then once it boots up, we should be able to see that we can preview in there. And we'll use that as a starting point for us to go from. Excellent. So we've loaded up, and then we have VR preview. So if I hold my headset, we can see around. Everything looks good. So, or at least it did look good until we crashed immediately. So I'll be right back and I'll fix that. So I've booted it back up, and just to see if we can get rid of that crash and stop it from happening again, I'm going to go to project settings, Windows, change DirectX 11 or DirectX 12 to DirectX 11, and then restart again. I'll keep this in just so you guys know if you've got something similar happening. It could be a good way to fix it. If you're using 5.1, you shouldn't have to do that anymore. But now we're back in, we should be able to press start, play, preview, and then jump back in without anything going wrong. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do is open up our VR template folder and blueprints. And we're going to look for our VR port. So mine opened on the other monitor, so I will drag it across and dock it. And you see here, we just got standard VR port stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our code in here. If you've seen the GDXR VR template that I'm working on, you'll know that it's a component. So you can drag and drop it onto the camera. But that's something that you guys will be able to do afterwards, as the logic's pretty much identical. So it's important to note that the logic for the HUD movement is going to be running on tick or a timer. I prefer to use timers because then I can control the duration. And you can also turn it on and off. So let's say you're in a cut screen, you can either hide the menu and then stop that tick so it's not loading in the background or running. And then you can kind of optimize it a little bit easier. But for now, yeah, we'll do the timer actually. So we'll do event begin play. We'll run through our logic of head mounted display enabled, set tracking origin, and then execute console command for screen density. And then we'll do should we do a custom event? We'll keep it tidy. So we'll right click, custom event, and then start HUD position. So we can go off there and we can search start HUD position. So that'll actually fire this node and it just keeps it all clean. So we can move our HUD logic over here somewhere and we can keep it out of the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by setting a timer by event. So set timer by event. And we can do this 0.2, which is the standard tick rate for Unreal. So it's a good time to use. And from our event, we're going to do another custom. Search update HUD location. Excellent. So now we've got that initial part started, we can start looking at adding a HUD itself. So at the minute, if we compile, we don't have a HUD. So what we could do is we can right click in our blueprints. Ideally, we would make a new folder. So if we do that for keeping things clean, call this UMG. And we'll right click user interface and we'll do widget blueprint. So user widget, WB, widget blueprint, and we'll call this player HUD main. I do main because often I add other UMGs into the player HUD, so you can spawn them in and out and then have content dynamically as you need it. So if we open this up, you'll see that in 5 we don't actually have anything to work with. So we want to add a canvas panel, and I believe that is in panel. We can drag that into the scene, and that's all good for this. And then we need to add something so we can visibly see it when we add it to the player. So we'll do a progress bar. We'll pretend this is our health bar. And we can have it going across the bottom of the screen. And we'll change the size, the position. And I always set with UMG for VR specifically, if you set the anchors to be center screen, it allows you to position it a lot easier and know where you're going with it, which is really nice when you're doing stuff. Let's add... We'll just add an image in the top left. Could imagine this is a mini map of some kind, but most likely that would be on a digital watch that you'd have on your player. But would still set that to centered. We basically just want some stuff that we can see on the screen. So once we've got that, we have our widget blueprint. We can go to VR porn. We can go to components and add, and we'll search for widget. You'll see here we've got a component called widget. The widget component provides a surface in 3D environment on which the widgets normally render to the screen. Widgets are first rendered to render target, that then render target is displayed in the world. So we can do that. And we're going to make sure it's a child of our camera. So if we do camera child, we can hit compile. And if we go to the viewport, you'll see that we won't actually see anything. If you've worked with UMG in the past or widgets, you'll know that you've got to go over to the right-hand side. So you select the widget on the left, go to the right, widget class, and you'll see that we've got our widget blueprint player HUD. So that will appear somewhere in here, or at least it should do. And then we can move it back so it updates. Although it must be huge because I can't see it. So let's do 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. Oh, and I will need to set it to draw at desired size. Is it one of these? Where are you? 1920 by 1080. There we go. So we set the draw size to our actual size of our widget. If you're not too sure about the HUD size, what you can do is you can come here. You can drag this arrow, or you can look at the bottom left. So 1280 by 720 is what we actually want. 1280 by 720. Maybe not. Okay, let's stick with 1920 by 1080, which is normally what I default to. You'll see that we've got our screen size. And if we come where the camera's looking, you'll see that we're seeing the back of it. So we want to rotate this on the Z by 180 actually. So we flip it. If it stays, there we go. And now we can move it back. Compile and save. So if we have it like so, what we can do is we can play in preview and we can see that it exists in the scene and it's attached to our camera, but it's occluded by everything that's in the world. So what we can do for this is we can actually copy this material. So we press the folder button and we open this one up. You'll see that we can't really actually modify anything in it because it's a child or it's a material instance. So we want to go down the list to find the actual parent, which in this case, I believe is widget 3D pass-through. This is normally the parent for this. Yep. So with that one, and we know which one it is, what we can do is we can close the other two, and we want to go back to the VR template, and we're going to duplicate this. So we'll duplicate widget 3D pass-through, and then we'll add disable depth. So disable depth. And we'll open up this one. So this is our duplicate of our 3D pass-through material. And on the details panel left hand side, you should be able to search for depth. And you'll find disable depth test. So if you take this and hit apply, we can go back to our VR pawn where our widget component exists. And we can change our material to our new 3D pass-through depth. So we scroll down a little bit, we've got pass-through disable depth. Nothing will actually change in here, which is really good. And then if we test it now and we hit play, you'll see that the widget HUD is actually attached to the screen and it doesn't get occluded by anything in the world now. It'll always appear in front. So if I load up the controller, you see it actually appears in front of the controllers as well. So it works really good for something that would essentially be right in front of your face. And it looks better as well. So now that we have that up and running, what we can do is in our event graph for our VR pawn, we start looking at the actual logic for our project. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by setting the location and the rotation, and we're going to do those differently. You could do them in a transform, but ideally if you do them separately, they'll update at different times. Oh, not so much, but it's a bit better logic, to be fair. So I just double check everything. We can start by dragging in our widget. And from that, we're going to do set world location. And we're going to plug that into our custom event. And then we'll do set world location. Have that plugged into our set world. So what's happening here is on begin play, we start our HUD position and that sets our timer by event. So this basically starts up at every 0.2 seconds. It begins to loop, acting as our custom timer, and that fires this custom event to update our world location and our rotation. So we're going to make sure sweep is ticked on our set world location. So what this will do is it's going to move it from point A to B, and it'll trigger anything in the way. We don't have anything to trigger, so we don't need to worry about that. But it saves updating every time. And we're going to work backwards from this. So if we drag off new location, we're going to search for V interp 2. And this is a vector interpolate 2. And it acts as a lerp node, moving from A to B with a timer. So if we select V interp 2, you'll see if we hover over, it goes, tries to reach target based on distance from current position, given a nice smooth feeling when tracking a position. And you can see here we've got options for delta time, and interp speed. So we can use those to control the speed of the movement. So the first thing we would is get a reference to our widget. And we'll search, actually we'll get world location. And we'll plug that into current. So our widget, we're getting the current location of that. Now a target is going to be something that we don't actually have. So what we've got here is we could use the camera as our target, but what that'll do is it'll move it to us. And the reason I didn't do this originally is because I wanted to show you how you've got to kind of like think about the logic. So if we did this and we did the camera, so let's say we do camera, get world location and target, what that's going to do is it's going to take the HUD and it's going to snap it to us. So it would technically be in our head. We could offset it, but another way that we can do this, and it's actually much easier to manipulate, is if we select our camera and we add an arrow component. So these are hidden in the project, and we make our widget a child of that arrow. We can set our widget location back to 0, 0. And then we can position our arrow and we can move that out. So what we've got now is a way to manually move our arrow component for the distance to the camera without having to add other float values or variables to offset that and code it in. Just makes it a little bit easier for us to work with. So if we drag in a reference to our arrow, we search get world location. We can plug that into our target. So now our widget is going to try and match the target of our arrow. And we have a delta time. So we want to plug in a time value. If you're using event tick, you could probably just plug that straight into the exposed float value. But what we could do here is we have a set timer by event. We can promote the return value to a variable, and this will create a timer handle for us. So we can do HUD timer, and that's what we'll call it. If we hit compile. And what that allows us to do is, as this is ticking, it fills in the information here. So we can come down and we can find our HUD timer value, which is located in the bottom left. I'm not too sure if you guys can see it. So let's put it up here. So we got HUD timer. I'll make these. Can we just dock these in the same place? It's been a little bit of a pain. There we go. So what we can do is we can get our HUD timer. We can drag that in as a reference and do get time elapsed by handle. And we can plug that into our delta time. And for enter speed, I find a value of 2 is normally pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use a find lookout rotation. So we drag off the rotation and we do find lookout rotation. Basically what we can do is we can get a start point and then a target, and we can make them face each other. Or we can make our HUD face our camera in this case. So we'll get our widget and we'll do get world location again. That's going to be our start position. Double check. Yep. And then we're going to get our camera reference. So in components, we'll do a reference to our camera. And get world location. And then we can plug that into like so. We make sure to hit compile and save. And now what we can do is we can actually test it. So if we jump in and we move it, we can see our rotation's working, but it's snapped to our camera. So what I've done is I've made a mistake and our order of stuff is wrong. So we're going to take our widget and we're going to remove it from our parent, we're going to remove it from the child of our arrow. So it just exists in our VR point. So now it's not a child, so it's not getting that rotation mainly. So now if I pick it up, you'll see that actually follows the camera and rotates around. And if we jump in it properly, we can jump in and you'll see that it actually follows and matches the position. So I can see it, we can teleport, and it'll automatically move with us where we go. So if you don't want your HUD to follow the player camera, you could literally just attach the widget to the arrow and have the same kind of setup, and you won't need any of this code. So what we'll do is we'll comment this, say comment, and then we'll do update HUD location and rotation. Cool. So that is how you create a dynamic HUD. And then you can just feed in the information through to your widget as you need it. So you update anything in the player HUD main, it's going to update into the actual widget that you see on the player. And what you could do is you could then use let's say pause timer. We'll do by handle, because we've got one that exists already, which is this HUD timer. We can plug that in. So now you can actually pause the update position based on this and maybe set the location of the widget to match the arrow or that kind of thing. So that's just, there's quite an easy way to set up a VR HUD. Probably took a little bit longer to explain than necessary, but hopefully there was enough in there to get you started and on track for setting that up yourself. So just before we end, make sure to head over to the Discord. There's a link in the description so you can actually ask for any help or let us know how you're using this. It'd be awesome to see. We've also got a Patreon, so if you want to download this project file and you want to give it a shot, take a look at the code itself, or just use it as a starting point, feel free to do so. We've also got the GDXR template over there, which is currently in development, which you might have seen videos of. So if you want to play around with anything, feel free to get in touch and then go from there. Yeah, so thank you to all my Patreons for making this possible. And it's awesome. Fantastic. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.